Have you ever wondered what would happen if, one day, every animal on Earth suddenly received the same mysterious command, marked humans as the final boss, and launched a full, no-mercy attack on our species? And the scariest part is, the first wave probably would not be lions, tigers, grizzly bears, or even crocodiles. It would not be the big dramatic movie monsters you are imagining. The first things to break humanity would be the tiny creatures you usually do not even bother learning the names of. On the first day of the disaster, parasites all over the world suddenly become extremely active. Hookworms, roundworms, whipworms, lung flukes, and all kinds of nightmare fuel that already sound like they were designed by a very angry biology teacher suddenly go into rage mode. They begin attacking the human intestines, lungs, liver, and other organs. Millions of people never even get the chance to see a large predator. Before any lion shows up, they are already collapsing from severe infections, internal bleeding, anemia, organ damage, and shock. On the very first day, tens of millions of people die from parasites and related infections. Humans used to think we were at the top of the food chain. Then, on day one, we get humbled by worms. At the same time, around 600 million dogs and hundreds of millions of cats suddenly begin attacking humans. Those adorable little pets that were cuddling with you yesterday, waiting for treats and food, are now basically small domestic predators with personal grudges. Most people are completely unprepared. They get scratched, bitten, and in many places, surrounded by packs of stray cats and dogs. More than 1 billion people suffer injuries of different levels. And then things get even worse. Venomous snakes, spiders, scorpions, ants, rats, killer bees, hornets, and countless other insects and small animals begin attacking humans on a massive scale. Cobras, pit vipers, tarantulas, black widows, and other deadly creatures start appearing in neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, subway stations, and apartment buildings. Hospitals are overwhelmed almost immediately. Antivenom, antibiotics, bandages, disinfectants, and emergency supplies are used up at terrifying speed. Many people might have survived under normal conditions, but with medical resources collapsing, they can only watch as wounds become infected, venom spreads, and their bodies slowly fail. By the end of the first day, the entire world has fallen into chaos. And the large predators are not exactly taking a coffee break either. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, leopards, wild boars, crocodiles, and even large animals from zoos begin breaking out and attacking tourist spots, farms, towns, and the edges of major cities. Africa, Latin America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and regions with dense wildlife suffer some of the worst casualties. In some places, taking out the trash becomes less of a daily chore and more of a survival mission. But the truly terrifying part is this: animals do not just bite. They also bring disease. Pigs, chickens, bats, rats, mosquitoes, flies, and many other animals begin spreading viruses, bacteria, and parasites at a global scale. Malaria, bird flu, swine flu, and all kinds of new infectious diseases begin spreading at the same time. Some diseases that humans thought they had under control start making a comeback in the middle of the chaos. Only now do humans realize that the scariest thing about animals is not always the teeth and claws. Sometimes, it is the deluxe microbial buffet they are carrying around for free. By the second day, the global death toll has passed 300 million. More than 6 billion people have been affected either directly or indirectly, and at least 1 billion have serious injuries or infections. Governments around the world finally understand that this is not a normal disaster. This is a global survival crisis for human civilization. Scholars, scientists, doctors, engineers, military personnel, key industry workers, and some political leaders are given priority access to bunkers, underground bases, secret facilities, and sealed buildings. Cities begin building temporary walls, while armies use firearms and heavy weapons to fight off large animal swarms. Ground forces are responsible for stopping the beast. Medical teams are responsible for studying the diseases. Biologists are responsible for figuring out why animals are suddenly attacking humans. And ordinary people are responsible for sitting at home and praying that the cockroach in the kitchen does not suddenly decide to bring its entire family for revenge. By the third day, around 1 billion people have moved into major bunkers, underground bases, and sealed shelters. But many more never make it inside. They are forced to remain on the surface and fight animals, venomous insects, parasites, and disease at the same time. Outside the cities, rural areas, mountains, forests, grasslands, and coastlines basically become human exclusion zones. By the fourth day, the global death toll is approaching 1 billion. Humanity begins making extreme decisions. To reduce internal threats and secure food supplies, huge numbers of pets and livestock are eliminated. Cats, dogs, pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, and other animals are either killed or processed into jerky, canned food, or industrial food products. It sounds brutal, but at that point, humans are no longer having polite ethical debates. When your dinner can bite you, or worse, tries to turn you into its dinner, it becomes very hard to stay elegant about the situation. By the fifth day, the global death toll rises by another 100 million, but the speed of increase begins to slow down. The reason is simple. Major cities have started building temporary walls and military defense lines. Tanks, armored vehicles, machine guns, drones, flamethrowers, and modern weapons begin making a difference. Large animals are terrifying, but against modern military firepower, they still struggle to break through city defenses head-on. The animal swarms are barely being held back. But birds are still a massive problem. Huge numbers of birds attack from the sky. They peck at people's eyes, damage power lines, crash into drones, and contaminate water and food supplies. A single bird may not do as much damage as a bear, but when they come in massive numbers, move fast, and attack from above, they become almost impossible to fully defend against. For the first time in human history, the sky itself becomes something people are afraid of. City armies begin pushing outward, clearing animals and insect swarms around urban areas. But they quickly discover a painful truth. Killing animals is not the hard part. The hard part is that animals are everywhere. Large animals can be handled with heavy firepower. But mosquitoes, rats, ants, flies, fleas, and ticks are not something you solve with a few artillery shells. You can fire a missile at a herd of buffalo. You cannot use a missile to personally remove one mosquito hiding in a sewer. By the sixth day, the global death toll increases by another 100 million, but the growth rate drops again. Inside some major cities, the large animal swarms are mostly cleared. The number of large animals actively attacking humans drops sharply. Humans begin rebuilding basic order within city walls, creating quarantine zones, disinfection areas, food distribution centers, and military patrol systems. But outside the cities, the world is still a living nightmare. By the seventh day, the death rate inside major cities is mostly under control, and the animal swarms are being held back by military defenses. But rural areas, mountains, forests, and wilderness zones continue to suffer massive deaths. People there are attacked by livestock, wild animals, venomous insects, parasites, and infectious diseases all at once. Huge numbers of refugees from rural and suburban areas begin moving toward the cities. But the problem is, the cities no longer dare to let people in freely. Every refugee could be carrying viruses, parasites, fleas, ticks, or even a venomous spider hiding in their clothes, fully prepared to ruin everyone's day. So large numbers of people are stopped outside the city walls. It is not because the cities do not want to save them. It is because letting in the wrong group could turn an entire city into a new outbreak zone. 1 month later, the population outside the cities has almost disappeared. Survivors have either entered cities or taken shelter in a few rare sealed facilities. The complete walls around major cities are finally finished, strong enough to hold back large animal swarms. Most large birds have also been hunted down, and the sky no longer looks like a black curtain from an end-of-the-world movie. But the price is horrifying. By this point, the global death toll has reached around 3 billion. 3 months later, some people propose using nuclear weapons to wipe out massive animal populations and contaminated zones outside the cities. It sounds insane. But from humanity's point of view at the time, it might actually seem like one of the more gentle options. However, before nuclear weapons can be used on a large scale, disaster erupts inside the cities first. Some governments and military groups ignore the warnings of scientists and secretly develop biological weapons, trying to use viruses and toxins to wipe out animals quickly. In the short term, these weapons do cause enormous damage to animal populations. But very soon, humanity suffers the consequences. The air becomes contaminated. The water becomes contaminated. The soil becomes contaminated. New plagues begin breaking out inside the cities. Massive numbers of corpses cannot be handled in time. Under heat, sewage, and insect activity, they begin to rot quickly, producing even more bacteria and viruses. Some international megacities briefly become empty ghost cities. The streets have no traffic anymore. Only the smell of decay, warning sirens, and the occasional small animal crawling out from the ruins. Medical resources are completely exhausted. Humans no longer have the energy to care about the animal swarms outside the cities because the cities themselves are barely surviving. 1 year later, the global population has fallen to around 1 billion. Because resources are limited, the plagues still have not been fully controlled. Food production has almost collapsed. Livestock farming is gone. Fishing can no longer be maintained. Agriculture is devastated by insect attacks, animal attacks, and disease. There is less and less food humans can eat. There is less and less clean water humans can drink. 5 years later, the global population drops to around 100 million. Even the largest cities in the world now have fewer than 1 million people. The plagues are finally brought under some level of control, but why animals continue attacking humans remains a mystery. Scientists come up with many possible explanations. Maybe it is some unknown pathogen. Maybe environmental changes cause mass neurological abnormalities. Or maybe the entire ecosystem, in some way humans still cannot understand, decided that we were a threat that needed to be removed. But whatever the reason is, the result is the same. Humanity survives. But the world is no longer the same world. With the population greatly reduced, plants begin growing through many cities. Weeds rise from cracks in the roads. Vines cover office towers. Shopping malls turn into nests for birds and rats. Small animals begin appearing in large numbers again, continuing to attack the remaining humans. 10 years later, most large animals in the world have been hunted down. Tigers, lions, bears, wolves, wild boars, bison, large dogs, and large birds experience massive population collapse. Many species go extinct completely. But mosquitoes, rats, cockroaches, flies, ticks, and ants are still extremely hard to eliminate. They continue spreading disease, keeping the human population from recovering. You can defeat a lion. You can wipe out a herd of bison. But declaring war on a mosquito is a completely different level of humiliation. Because that thing does not follow the rules of war. 40 years later, large animals have almost disappeared after decades of war against humans. Many small animals have also been wiped out. Bird populations drop so low that in many places, people no longer hear birdsong at all. And this creates a new problem. Many plants go extinct because they no longer have insects and birds to pollinate them. Plants that depend on animals to spread their seeds also disappear across huge areas. At the same time, with most grazing animals gone, certain grasses, algae, and vine-pollinated plants begin growing out of control. The outside ecosystem changes completely. Forests, grasslands, wetlands, and rivers no longer function the way they once did. This is now a world with almost no large animals. Even small animals are becoming rare. Land animals are no longer able to pose a major threat to humanity. Humans have finally survived the global animal attack. But this victory does not feel like a victory at all. Because the price is the near collapse of the entire global ecosystem. For decades, humans continue killing animals, and animals continue attacking humans. Since animals are dying far faster than they can reproduce, small animals, tiny animals, and even many insects gradually move toward extinction. 100 years later, almost all animals on Earth are extinct. Humans have artificial meat and synthetic food technology, but production is nowhere near enough to feed every survivor. Food shortages, polluted water, soil degradation, and ecological collapse throw human society back into chaos. In some regions, cannibalism appears and slowly becomes normal. Over the past century, plants have grown wildly. Some regions are swallowed completely by green overgrowth. Many bodies of water suffer massive algae blooms, causing severe red tides and toxic water conditions. Fresh water becomes extremely scarce. Low-lying coastal areas are no longer suitable for long-term human survival because of climate problems, pollution, and ecological imbalance. Survivors begin moving to high-altitude regions. But those places also lack food, energy, and clean water. To fight over territory, fresh water, farmland, and the last remaining resources, humans go to war with each other again. City-states attack city-states. Shelters consume other shelters. National borders lose their meaning. All that remains is raw survival. And by this point, humans finally understand one thing. We thought we had defeated the animals. But in reality, we had only destroyed the ecosystem that allowed us to survive. Centuries later, the population continues to collapse. The remaining technology of human civilization breaks down piece by piece. Energy systems stop working. Synthetic food factories shut down one after another. Clean water becomes harder and harder to find. 500 years later, the last groups of humans finally fall because there is no longer enough food, water, or ecological support left to keep them alive. From that moment on, there are no humans left on Earth. And no animals either. Only wild plants, silent ruins, rivers covered in algae, and a planet that has finally gone quiet. If there is a winner in this war, it is probably not the animals. And it is definitely not humanity. The winner is Earth itself. It simply watches, cold and silent, as the two most chaotic players on the server manage to get themselves permanently kicked out. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. These videos take a lot of work to make, so if you enjoyed this one, please leave a like, subscribe, and support the channel. I'll see you in the next one.